Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are at pedalshift.net/136, and you can email me at the show, pedalshift@pedalshift.net, or call the voicemail hotline, 202-930-1109. Check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody. It's Tim Mooney again, back with you for the 136th episode of the Pedalshift Project. Very happy to have you along for the ride on this one. And this is a fun show. I did what turned out to be a shorter than expected ride, but a semi-eventful one this past weekend, and I thought I would be sharing that with you here on this show. But before we jump into all of that, I wanted to remind everybody that we've got a live show coming up in less than a week from when I am sitting here at the microphone recording. It will be on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, September 25th. I did that really out of order. Tuesday, September 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So would love to have you all show up for that. That's at pedalshift.net/live. If you're not able to make it, no worries. The video version of that will be up on YouTube. The audio version of it will be next week's show. So don't worry, you're not going to miss a thing. We're going to be talking about fall touring. We're going to be unveiling probably my last big tour of the year coming up. And I'm here to tell you that this ride may have changed a little bit of the dynamics on my thoughts on all of that. And you'll probably understand why in a little bit. But that will be all unveiled next week's show. So tune in for that. And if you can come to the live show Tuesday night, the 25th at 9 p.m., pedalshift.net/live. Would love to see you there. Quick other reminder, the Oregon Coast Loop videos the trilogy is not quite done yet. It's getting there. I have a lot to do. I'm trying to get that third part done, but I kind of need to just kind of jump into it and get it all done. I hope to get it done before, maybe before the live show. Maybe I can unveil it at the live show and say, hey, look, everybody, live show, here's the third video. I would love that. If not, so be it. A lot of things happening lately, and I'm crazy busy. So I'm hoping to get that done certainly by the end of the month. So look for that. The first two parts are up, and it was fun. They were great to produce, and I hope you all enjoyed them. On this episode, it's an all journal filled version of the Pedalshift Project. And the journal, of course, is when we talk about tours. This week, it is my tour. It was I don't know how to describe how this one all started off. It was a weekend that had been sort of roped off for a while. It was the one free weekend in September. Usually the weather's quite good this time of year around here in a terrible weather year that we've had in the District of Columbia. The plan was some kind of C&O adventure, hopefully with my dog Belle Star. That did not happen. The weather, as many of you know, and I'll talk about in the journal that's going to be coming up, did not cooperate, so Belle Star was left at home. Spoiler alert, I'm really glad I left her at home because she would not have enjoyed this at all. So the idea for this was going to be going out on the C&O as far as I'd want to go and figuring out some way to get back, whether I was going to ride back or take the train back. All of these thoughts, all of these plans changed literally on the fly, sometimes in the middle of when I was recording some of this. So come along with me and enjoy the changing plans of this particular ride. It was a real interesting one, and it ended up being, a few days later, a little bit of fun. Let's go check it out. I am sitting in basically the podcast studio right now. That's really just a fancy term for my living room area. And I'm putting on my shoes, and I'm getting ready to vacate. The hurricane that was supposed to threaten the district and its surroundings, and of course create flood issues on the Potomac, of course, as we all knew, or if you followed it, ended up in the Carolinas rather than further up the coast. And then it went south. And so as a result, this weekend's not so bad. But it's just bad enough not to bring Belle Star. So this is kind of a tropical air kind of ride, but it's not that big of a deal. But I am riding a little heavy nonetheless. I decided I'm going to bring all the food that I want to bring with me. I'm bringing some leftover pasta for crying out loud, so I don't even have to cook things. When I get into camp, I've got basically one of my panniers is going to be a cooler. May or may not have a beer or two in there. And I'm ready for rain. I expect it to rain, but I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. And I just get out on the trail and go. Goal would be outer goal would be Harper's Ferry. I don't feel like going any further than that, but I will have to cross that stream at the outage that I, of course, did the video on. Don't know if that's going to be possible. It's unknown how much water there is there. So we're just going to have to see. I may not be able to go as far as I'd like, but I'm prepared to if I need to. All right, let's get rolling. About 22 miles in, and I am at Lock 23. There's a picnic table. I'm loving that. Wildlife has been fantastic. And it's humid as heck, but it's, in the low to mid 70s, and it's not too bad. But the best part is the wildlife. I mean, got some really awesome looks at an enormously old tortoise or turtle. I can never tell the difference, I should. And a ton of blue herons. They're fantastic. Rolling some more after this break. I just realized I left my charge cable at home because I'm a dummy. I have a tendency to do this. I don't know why. I think this is at least the second and probably the third time that I've gone on the C&O where I've brought batteries and devices and charge cables. It's a critical piece. I think once I went across to Leesburg and I got one. I'm not going to do that this time. I've got plenty of juice. I'm just doing an overnight, I think. I'm just going to stop streaming the Syracuse game, which is definitely probably a good idea. If history has anything to say about it. But hey, they're winning now. I guess we'll see. Story of the ride in the 25 to 35 mile marker range is, as always, the mud. I frequently, I don't know why I take it a little personally for some strange reason, maybe because I'm on Team C&O, as you know. But people are like, oh, it's terrible, awful surface, need knobby tires that are 4 inches wide, blah, 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 blah. You don't need that. Now, if you're on skinny tires in the muck, it's not going to help you too much. But yeah, this 10-mile stretch, and there's a deer. This 10-mile stretch is, to me, the one that I tend to dread the most when I know it's been wet and when the sun hasn't been out to dry it out. Because even if there has been multiple days of dry weather, like we've kind of had, strangely enough, the foliage at this time of year really stops it from draining and drying out. So you end up with a lot of ruts, you end up with a lot of mud holes, and the C&O mud is something special. It is sticky and clay-like, and it gets, if you've got not a lot of room in your fenders, like I don't have a ton of room in there, not a lot of clearance, they tend to gum up a lot. So I need to come up with a verb for this, maybe sticking. You find a small stick and you clear the gooey clay out between your tire and the fender. It's not as fun, but I tell you what, when you get on, it's sort of like, oh, it's like getting a little push because you didn't realize it, but the mud was basically acting as a tertiary brake on you the whole time, so you've been fighting it and you didn't even know it. Almost to mile marker 30, so I'm getting close to where it starts to dry out for a little bit, then it gets a little bad again right before White's Ferry. And then we start getting into options for camping if I want to. I don't know, I'm kind of just taking today slow. I don't know if I'm going to go all the way to Harper's Ferry after all. One thought was that I could look to see if there was a train ticket with a bike available tomorrow, and I could take the train back. And then that way I could really chill out and relax, because here I am, mile marker 28, just passing by right now. So yeah, it just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. It's interesting. I mentioned this to Mysterious James the other day, how I find trails like the C&O and the Katy and the Gap to honestly be, in some ways, more physically demanding than something like the Oregon coast. And you're like, Tim, that's ridiculous. There's tons of hills. Yeah, but there's also I've been pedaling constantly since I left DC, and there's no break, there's no coasting. It's just this constant go, go, go. And so when I take breaks, when I'm on the Oregon coast, I take a break every 20 to 30 miles, maybe. Here, I'm finding I probably need to take more breaks than that, just because the legs really get burnt out, and I'm definitely feeling it. The good news is about 7 miles ahead, there's a good spot for a break. There's the White's Ferry, the cable ferry across the river. No, I mentioned that a bunch of times. That goes to Leesburg if you'd like it. I don't intend to cross the river today. I will stay on this side, but on this side there is kind of a little snack bar of sorts, and you may check that out, especially if they take credit cards, because I realized I had no cash. All I had was change, so I have a pocket full of change for the soda machines if I'm wanting that. But maybe they'll take a credit card. Who knows? I do have that. So from a muddy C&O, we'll check in a little bit. Not far after from that last statement, that last little bit of recording about the mud, I'm seeing something really interesting here. I took a picture of it and I'll put it in the show notes. The canal at this point is overgrown. There's trees growing in it, and there's foliage and whatnot. You may or may not be picking up, there's a bit of heavy equipment on the road that runs parallel here. The interesting thing is that it's all covered in a fine dusting of dirt right now up to a certain point. So you can tell how flooded things got in recent days, recent weeks maybe, because as the water receded, it still left that muck behind. So I can see exactly how high up it went. It came up, it looks like it may have come up to just shy of the Towpath itself, which is really kind of fascinating. And did not go over the Towpath because I don't see the same muck on the other side, on the side that leads towards the river. So the river didn't crest over, it was the canal itself that did. Kind of interesting to see all of that. That's a little bit of Sherlock Holmesing I can do here. I think it's the second time in 2 days that I've used that. Different podcast, so never mind. And looks like they're harvesting something at the farm next door. From Chisel Branch, which is a hiker-biker campsite. You may recall, you may have seen, the pre-Pedalshift video that I shot here once when I got caught in a flood. And so this is a very, very flood-prone campsite. Well, just to the DC side of this, I started going through a muddy trail, and it's very clear that the river did cap over its banks, and the trail was in brutal shape. I got to the point where my bike locked up. There's so much mud in my everywhere. I mean, it's just literally everywhere. It's gunked up in every inch of the fender. It got into the brake systems. I mean, there's branches in there and everything. I had to hop off and walk eventually, but yeah, I luckily this is here because it gives me a water source to basically just keep filling up my water bottle and spraying it. Now, I have to keep going or I have to stay. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all turns out, because frankly, it didn't take long, only a few hundred meters, I think, for it to get basically unmovable. I do know, because I remember from when I got flooded here, that there is a spot up ahead where if there's a road, there's one of those canal headquarters, what do you call them, bunkhouses. So I know that I don't have to go much further to get out of the mud. The question is it bad? Is it this bad elsewhere? Based on experience, it probably is, between here and White's Ferry. So that kind of leaves me with a question, what to do. This is obviously not an efficient day of riding, so the odds of me making my usual 60-ish mile days are low. A, because I got a late start. B, this is crazy. As you may be able to hear this, digging out the mud from here. So what I may consider doing is I may consider seeing if I can get up to White's Ferry. I know there's a good campground on the other side of it. And maybe what I could do is, rather than do a mud sufferfest, and it would improve later on down the trail, I may just declare the C&O a victor and tomorrow cross the river. I just got done saying I wasn't going to cross the river, right? And then take the Washington Old Dominion back, which is a paved trail that I tend to avoid on weekends because it's very busy with lots of racer types and lots of it's a multi-use trail, so lots of people who love to use it, especially on a nice day on the weekend. And since this hurricane isn't turning out to be much of a hurricane, I expect more people will be out tomorrow. Because this is not going to be a workable solution here. This is as bad as I've ever seen my bike on the trail. It's really horrible. So take a look in the show notes because it's pretty impressive. The mud, the viscous nature of it, the leaves and the branches that got in here. I'm kind of impressed and horrified at the same time. But this is the C&O. This is how it rolls, man. If you want to ride the C&O, you got to do a little bit of mud. This is just way more than normal. So, keep cleaning. So, I decided not to get on the trail again, but I did decide to go further on. I'm on a really nice rural road. It is not paved. It's going through beautiful farmland, and I'm headed towards White's Ferry, and that will, then I'm going to take a break because I think I'd like to just sort of figure out what my options are. It does seem like there's a chance of finally squeezing some rain out of this, the remnants of this now tropical storm Florence. So I think I'm going to probably reconsider the longer route, just seeing what the trail situation was like and how gummed up my bike got. I'm actually a little concerned it's a little too gummed up right now, and the brakes are in bad shape. I'm scratching up the rims and everything, so I think I'm just gonna see what's up there, maybe grab a bite to eat, count my change. I literally don't have any bills on me. Didn't expect to need cash, but I will need cash to cross that river tomorrow. So the other option would be to take basically River Road back tomorrow, or at least for the portions that are kind of cruddy here on the trail, and just skip the mud. I'm enjoying the ride a lot more, and it's kind of beautiful with the farmland and everything. So different kind of ride than what I was expecting, but hey, that's bike touring sometimes, isn't it? I'm at the next campground from Chisel Branch, Turtle Run. I'm at Turtle Run hiker biker campsite, mile marker 34 and a half. Hey, I'm calling this a little bit. It's a little different kind of ride than I thought it was going to be. I thought that the weather was going to be more of a situation, but it's actually the mud, and this is a pretty typical issue in this part of the trail. But I also know that it's an issue a little bit further down the trail, and the degree to which my bike got gunked up says to me that the trail just is not in a good place for the way my bike is set up. I've got fenders, which I super recommend for this trail, but they are very close to the wheelbase, or to the tire, I should say. And I think I mentioned this before. The mud is so thick, and it's at that perfect place right now that it just gunks up everything. And I think that it would be a lot of slow going. So I think instead of going all the way down to West Virginia and taking the train back or doing a longer ride, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy a night camping here. The downside, this is the most logical place to stay. There's another one that's about 4 miles away, 5 miles, I guess. But this is only a mile from the ferry. The problem is that I am getting eaten alive by bugs. It is typically one of the flooded campsites, and there's definitely standing water in parts of this, and that, of course, means high bugs. So my biggest thing right now is to get the tent set up as best I can, pull out clothes that I want to change into, and then really get excited about getting inside that tent and just having a night inside. It's not what I would have liked. I brought my hammock. I would have loved to have used my hammock, but I think that that would not be a good idea. I think I've got bug spray. I tend not to like to use bug spray. I would rather just sort of retreat inside the tent and be in a bug-free environment rather than have chemicals on my body that allegedly keep them off. And I think it's 100% DEET, which is stupid strong. The other thing is, man, it looks like it's going to rain. So I thought, just getting the shelter together would be a good idea. And you know what? I wouldn't mind kind of a light rainy night and just kind of chilling out. I got an audiobook, I think. I got a lot of things that I can do. I don't have, as I mentioned, my charging cable. So I will have to be a little bit mindful of the juice that I've got. But I got the big phone with the big battery, and the big battery seems to be doing fine. And I guess I could set it near the other battery in the hopes that the electrons would jump from my portable battery into it. But I know that's not how it works. If only it did. All right, more later. You would think, having ridden this trail, I don't know how many times, and having read a bunch of books and all sorts of stuff, that I would have known almost everything about it, from the types of trees to the campsites to whatever. You would think that. I know nothing. So I just met one of the trail rangers. Now they are volunteer folks. They're kind of like the safety patrol of the trail, which is kind of funny and dismissive, and I don't mean it that way. They're literally out here to help people. I've talked to a few of them before. They have some interesting knowledge of the trail, in addition to just what they bring themselves, and of course what the Park Service tells them. They know where there are secret water caches and things like that. So they're very helpful, cool people that can help people when they're in a pinch. If you got a flat or whatever, they usually have some tools and whatnot. So this guy is like, "Hey, did you find any pawpaw?" And I'm like, "The tunnel? The town? What? I don't know what you're talking about." And so he proceeded to say, no, there's pawpaw fruit. And this is the season where they basically become ripe. So apparently the vast majority of the trees here on the C&O trail, at least in this part, I don't know if he meant throughout the entire system, but certainly here, drop these a little bit smaller. They're about the size of a champagne mango. I know that feels a little frou-frou for me to say, but it's the size of a champagne mango. You're just going to have to trust me if you don't know what that means or what that is. But and he's like, "Oh, well, here, I've got one and it's ripe and let's try it." And I'm sitting here going, okay, some strange person in an orange vest is telling me to eat this fruit, this strange fruit that I've never heard of. But, whatever, you only live once, right? YOLO. So I decided to eat it, of course, and it is the strangest thing. You slice it in half, and there were 4 or maybe 5 black seeds in them. They're about the size of a kidney bean. And you can eat around those, and they're very hard, and they're not edible. But the rest of the flesh, I guess you could call it, is very similar to a mango. It was like a banana-ish mango. I don't know how else to describe it, but that was sort of the flavor profile. Fascinating. Did not know a thing about this. And now, of course, I'm going to keep my eyes open on it. When he showed it to me, I was sort of like, yeah, I think I've seen stuff like this on the ground, but I always just dismissed it as bizarre trail detritus, or maybe even thought that it was a mango that somebody had that they dropped. But now I'm going to be keeping an eye out, because apparently in September they're out and they're ripe and they're quite delicious. So pawpaw fruit, check it out when you're on the C&O in September at least. Seems I've got some owl neighbors tonight. sun's going down. It's just about down right now. It's a little after 7:30. Owls are out. The nightlife of the C&O is starting to kind of kick in, which is why I always bring earplugs. A lot of people bring earplugs for the train noises. I don't have that issue at this campsite. What I have is the cacophony of the C&O. So I'll probably be early to bed tonight and early to rise in the morning when the sun comes up and try to get the goo off my bike. And then I'll just roll a mile over towards the ferry and take that across. I suppose I could just go, not take the paved path, but in fact just take the C&O back, or do the road route, or some combination of the road route and the C&O. I don't know. I'll play it by ear in the morning. We'll see how it goes. Good morning from the C&O. I am heading away from camp right now. Just that short ride of 1 mile on the far less crappy mud of the trail still put some mud in my fenders, which is kind of remarkable. So I think I have confirmed my decision to not be on the trail anymore. It's just simply too sticky. The mud's just too sticky. It's at that precise point where it just is a terrible idea. And it's interesting because it's even kicking into... I've got fenders on and I'm still getting it kicked onto all of my rear legs as I ride here on this final mile. So fenders aren't functioning properly. Bike's not riding very efficiently on it. So I've decided to make this into a ride that is what we affectionately call around the DC area the the Wadco Loop. Almost put the gap in there. The Wad, mentioned a few times, I don't ride it very often, is on the Virginia side of the river, and it largely parallels both the river and, of course, the C&O, which is on the Maryland side. I have done it once before in a day, and it is a tough, long ride. But today, I'll just be kind of completing the loop and coming home that way. And then, the added bonus is that there's amenities like a place to get food and things like that I don't have on the way back here on either the C&O, or there are some road routes that would actually save me a few miles and a little bit of crowds. So I think those are my two options, the road route or the co-gap. And I'm not hungry right now. See, as I'm talking to you, I might be reconsidering this. This is the point in the podcast where it's sort of like, should I make a right turn or a left turn? And if I make the right turn, I'm not getting food until 20 miles, and I have none on me, and I've eaten none. Or do I make a left turn, and do I get to go grab coffee and whatever I want in Leesburg? I don't know. That's feeling a little good right now. Worth the extra couple of miles. Well, going through some more mud here. I'm hoping that this doesn't clog things up too much again. And I have a relatively clean ride. My poor chain is so jacked up right now. It's just full of grit. And, of course, I've been using the well water to clean it off. And it's no bueno, as the kids say. Anyways, more in a moment. Riding on the other side of the Potomac River in Virginia, I love taking that cable ferry. The only problem is that this portion of the ride is not my favorite. You have to it's a short ride on a paved road here of no note that takes you out to US Highway 15, and you have a light. It takes forever because this is a country road, and the other road isn't. It's a full-on highway, 4-lane highway, and you got to cross it and make a left. There's another point where you have to cross on, I believe, an exit ramp of some kind, but it's not terrible, but it just doesn't feel as safe as, just sticking in a shoulder the whole way on a highway. I mean, as everyone who listens knows, I'm used to highway riding, especially U.S. highways, having just been on 101 recently. But this is very close to a major suburb of Washington, D.C., and the traffic can be pretty tough. Now, the good news is it's Sunday morning. It's relatively early. I'm hoping that there isn't a mega church nearby with a service happening soon, or worse, one getting out about this time. But we will see. I am looking forward to grabbing a quick coffee, maybe a little something to eat, and then getting on the Washington and Old Dominion Trail and starting heading my way home, because I'm dirty and my bike needs to be hosed off so bad. It's so bad. Mile marker 9 on the WOD. Terrible name, I know. It's Washington and Old Dominion, W&OD, short name WOD. Yeah. Okay. So I've been on this for 26 miles now. As you can hear, the first remnants of now Tropical Storm Florence are manifesting as, you guessed it, a headwind. So there's that. But it's fine. I'm persevering. I removed my rear fender. It was basically serving as one giant brake for the last 30 miles. And I finally got sick of it. I couldn't clear it enough. It kept slipping to the point where it was hitting the very caked on clay inside. It was pretty remarkable. I'm going over the Beltway now, I think. I-495 goes around Washington, D.C. So this is sort of about the 10-mile mark for me getting home, give or take. Maybe a little bit more because I'm not down on the river so much. Downside of taking this route home as opposed to C&O. Upside is, holy moly, that mud. But it's been good so far. It's crowded on the water. Beautiful day. Man, if you're going the opposite direction, you're catching quite the tailwind, which is nice. But enjoyable ride, enjoyable trail. People are sharing, being nice. I am home. And the ride on the WOD was pretty good. I ended up going from the WOD to the Custis Trail. So if you're playing the home game, taking a look at a map, basically it's a parallel trail until you get right across the Arlington, Virginia border or so, and then you cut off towards Interstate 66 has this great trail called the Custis Trail that basically takes you all the way into DC. And there's a bunch of different bridge options to get you in. I think Google Maps was trying to get me to take one particular bridge. I screwed up and took a different one. I should have taken the one that it had recommended. It would have been an easier ride back. But all was good. All worked out well. I have to say, my summary, normally I get off of the WOD and swear I'm never getting back on it again on a weekend. And I think that I will still try to avoid the WOD on weekends. It's just so busy. But unlike other experiences, which were super, super, super negative, it was a pretty good one this time. The weather was better, despite the hurricane and the headwinds and stuff like that. It was overcast, and I'm usually just roasting because there's very little cover. And again, yada yada. You guys have heard this a million times. I don't like to be hit by the sun too much during rides. That wasn't the case this time. It was cool but very humid. So I was pretty cooked by the end of it, despite the real minimal mileage. It was about a 40-mile ride. But it was a 40-mile ride that I was kind of pushing because I was trying to get back to take care of my dogs because my girlfriend had to take off, and there was a period of time where they were going to be unattended, and we wanted to minimize that. So I was rushing. If I hadn't done that, then I would have definitely stopped at one of the many, many signed brew pubs that were along the way, which was a new thing compared to the last time that I was on there. That looks really intriguing, and I may actually do a fall ride just on the WOD to do a little kind of exploring of the beer scene between here in DC and Leesburg. So that's definitely something I'd like to do in the future. The flip side, just to circle back, I normally find that people share that trail poorly, whether it's cyclists, pedestrians, or other. And there's a lot of interesting other on that trail. The new thing lately has been, of course, sort of motorized conveyances of small wheels. So I didn't see any of those electric scooters, but I saw the electric skateboards and a few other things. One guy came out on a mono wheel skateboard and just popped out of the middle of nowhere while I was being passed. And the person who was passing was like, whoa, as the guy just popped out right in front of her. And he really teed off on her about basically, I'm going to summarize, not sharing the trail. And it really was this dude's fault because he literally came out of nowhere. I mean, there was nothing. I mean, she was doing exactly what she had said. On your left, she was passing me. And dude just jumps out right in front of her because he wasn't looking. I saw the whole thing. That's the kind of thing I see a lot on the WOD, including the barking, the aggro barking at other people, and that's why I just don't like going on it very much. That was the only time that happened on this trip, and I was seeing much more cooperation. Maybe things are getting better. Earlier in the year, there was a really serious injury by somebody who actually took a swing at someone. So you can kind of get where my point of view is on all of this. It can be kind of weird and ugly, and I don't understand what the deal is with that. In any event, this was a great ride. This turned out to be a fun kind of S240, I think it ended up being. It was different than I expected. I mean, I expected to be maybe even going all the way out to Harper's Ferry and maybe taking the train back. You heard it all as I was kind of changing my mind. And that was the kind of fun part about this, is that I had this loose idea of what I was doing. I still got to get Belle Starr out on the trail. She hasn't been out the entire season, and just the weather has just been so bad. But C&O trail conditions are a little bit not so great right now, so I'm hoping for some lengthy dry periods to really dry out that 10-mile stretch. If not, there are road options to kind of get around that. So, but it is making me reconsider how I'm going to approach doing any rides on the C&O going forward for the rest of the season until the trail sort of kind of finds its center again. So more to come on all of that. But in the meantime, that was a fun Wadco loop. We like to close out the show with a big thank you to all of the supporters of the Pedalshift project through the Pedalshift Society. If you like what you hear, you can help maintain Pedalshift as an independent, listener-supported voice while expanding the offerings. We're talking $5, $2, or even $1 a month helps with the cost of hosting the podcast, the website, and more. And you can do it for a little bit, cancel anytime. One-shot support's welcome if you're not into the whole small monthly thing. And you can check it all out and join at pedalshift.net/society. On to the Society. Ethan Georgie, Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittis, Thomas Skadow, Seth Krieger, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Noah Schroer, Harry Telgadas, John Sikorsky, Richard Killian, Chris Barron, Brian Wren, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Paul Mulvey, Stuart Buchan, Todd Stutz, Mr. T, Roxy Arning, Nathan Poulton, Harry Hugel, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Ruth Divorcey, Michelle Miller, Matthew Lewis, Michael Baker, Billy Crafton, Paul Culbertson, Scott Culbertson, Matt Perry, Danielle Jepson, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Bobby Ruppel, Roy Everett, Greg Braithwaite, John Mayer, William Cairns, Sandy Pizzio, Richard Patch, Mark Messer, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Dave Roll, Joseph Quinn, John Baxter, Susan Brewster, and all anonymous and past contributors. Thank you for making this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, mono wherever cool music is available.